Hello and welcome to the Manifestation Podcast with Peggy McColl. Peggy is a world-renowned wealth, business, and manifestation expert, as well as the best-selling author of the brand new book, The Demand Principle. Are you ready to manifest your dreams? Tune in now.
Hello there and welcome back. It is Peggy McColl and you're here for the Manifestation Podcast. Today I want to share with you a story of something that happened to me many years ago. You see, I had found myself in a very challenging financial situation. I was all consumed in debt and I was afraid. And the fear that I was connecting to was the fear of not having money or not having any more money come into my life. And at the time, I owned a home and I was single at the time. I was a single mom. And the big concern that I had was potentially losing my home. I didn't have creditors banging on the door or anything like that. But in my mind, I had gone to a place, a dark place, which I don't recommend, by the way. But this dark place that I went to was a place of imagining that I was going to lose my home. Now, I want to recommend, before we go any further, not to do that, okay? You know, this was at a time where I was struggling. I wasn't really focused on what I already knew. I was caught up in fear. And of course, fear can become very real. Fear is also debilitating. And what I found, and I know many people find this as well, is that when you get all consumed in fear, that you're not seeing solutions, you're not being creative. And I reached this point where I really didn't know what to do. And I did the only thing that I could think of, and that was to cry. And I cried because I was scared. And while I was crying, I could hear the words of my wonderful friend and mentor, Bob Proctor. And Bob Proctor said the following, and this was something I'd heard back in 1979. Bob had said to never cry over anything that won't cry over you. And as I thought of Bob's words and I was sitting there crying, I was thinking to myself, money is never going to cry over me, or the lack of money is never going to cry over me. And so why am I crying over something, some fear-based idea or concept that I had conjured up in my own imagination that was really weighing me down? And I thought of a quote by Winston Churchill. And the quote goes like this: if you find yourself in a hole, stop digging. And I was literally in a hole. And I also remembered that being in debt or being in a position where you're financially struggling does not have to define you. It can be simply looked at as a temporary situation. And that ended up being exactly what it was for me. But I don't know about you, whether you've had an experience like that or not, or whether you're going through one right now. But I do want you to know all of that, all of those things that came to my mind are very valuable ideas of not crying over something that's going to cry over you, of not getting attached to creating an identity around being broke or being poor. There's a difference between those two. And just simply recognizing that if you're all consumed in fear, you cannot see. Everything appears dark. It's really a destructive environment and a destructive state to be in. So what I did was, fortunately, I had a realization from getting to that point of realizing that I had simply forgotten what I already knew. And I needed to get focused. I needed to do a better job of managing my thoughts and my emotions. And so I made a decision right then and there. And I thank God that I made that decision at that time. I made a decision that I was going to focus on only thoughts and ideas that would build a better outcome for me, that would create a more pleasurable, abundant, wealthier outcome for me. And so I remember sitting down at my kitchen table and I had a pen and a piece of paper. And I just thought, what do I already know that's relevant to abundance, to wealth? What do I know that's going to be ideas, thoughts, affirmations, incantations, whatever it is, that are going to have me experiencing only the outcomes that I desire? And that I would really, really put some serious thought to that. And that's exactly what I did. So I sat down at my kitchen table and I invested a considerable amount of time. And I came up with these ideas. I called them distinctions. And I called them my 21 distinctions of wealth. Now, I do have a book out there in the world. It was released several years later, but I do have a book by the same title called 21 Distinctions of Wealth. And that book and the content of that book is really based on that experience of how I turned my financial life around. And so what I'm going to do in this podcast for the next 15 minutes that we're together is I want to share with you what these distinctions of wealth are and encourage you to really seek to understand them, like really assimilate them, bring them in, allow them to come into your consciousness. Some are really obvious and some are maybe requiring a little more explanation. I know which ones are obvious and which ones require a little more explanation, so I'm going to talk about those right now. So the first one is distinction number one, and this is one of the very obvious ones, and that is you are already rich. You were born that way. You are already rich. You were born that way. Everyone comes into this world with the same opportunity. We all have the same opportunity. Now, you may be living in another part of the world. You may think you don't have opportunities, but everybody does. Everyone has opportunities. So we're all born with opportunities. That's essentially what that's saying. You're already rich. And frankly, rich is a word that if we really look at our lives, what do we call wealth? What do we call richness? Well, it could be defined in many different ways. For example, I'm sure you've heard this before. If someone said to you, how much would you be willing to sell your right arm for? Well, you're not going to sell your right arm. Well, what if I offered you $1 million? Are you going to sell it for $1 million? No. 10 million? No. There's no price you can pay. What about your sight? Obviously, you're very wealthy. Now, I think that's a really oversimplistic example, and nobody's going to give away body parts or sell body parts. At least I don't think they are. And so it really is talking about we've got to appreciate what we have. It's like, have you ever heard somebody say they lost it all, yet they're standing there having a conversation, they're speaking, they didn't lose it all, they lost stuff. They lost home, or they lost car, or they lost furniture, or whatever. It's stuff. You did not lose it all. Like if you realize what you really have, you've got your brain, you've got your mind, you've got your senses, you've got so many gifts as well. There's so much more that you have. Distinction number two is one of my favorites. And this distinction is the willingness to give it all up leads to having it all. Think about that for a moment. The willingness to give it all up. It does not mean you have to give it all up. It just means you're willing to give it all up. It's like for risk takers, right? You got to be willing. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get to where I want to go, as long as it's legal, ethical, and moral. That's really what the willingness to give it all up leads to having it all is in reference to. Distinction number three, there is an infinite supply of abundance. And there is an infinite supply of abundance. There's abundance everywhere. Everywhere. There's trillions of dollars in this world. And so it's there, it's available, and it's available to everyone. Distinction number four, the universe is always giving. It's like, think about you breathing right now. As I'm sitting here and I'm delivering this podcast for you, I'm breathing. I'm not wondering if there's going to be another breath. I know there's going to be another breath. I'm not sitting here thinking. The breath is already there. The universe is always giving air. Air is available. Abundance is a lot like that as well. Wealth, richness is always available to everyone. So the universe is always giving. Distinction number five, when you let go of envy, you let go of your ignorance. Quite simply, this means that if you're looking at other people and you're envying what they have, as my good friend Bob Proctor says, envy is ignorance. It's not ignorance, not being rude, meaning rude, ignorance meaning just not knowing. You see, if you let go of envy, you let go of ignorance. So what do you do when you see somebody who has more than you have? Appreciate it. Give thanks for it. Be happy for them. That's what you do in those cases. Distinction number six, all the riches in the world, or all the riches you haven't recognized or claimed in the past, are still available to you. So you may think, well, I'm, 41 years of age. Of course, that's not me. I'm in my 60s, but I've reached this point where I just can't do it anymore, or I missed my chance. No, you didn't. You did not miss your chance. There's plenty of chances or opportunities in the world. They're still there and they're still available to you. I've heard many people say that as well, and I'll say to them, listen, if you're still breathing, you still have a chance. Distinction number 7, infinite patience produces immediate results. This has got to be one of my favorite of them all, infinite patience. You see, you got to be patient. You got to understand that there's a period of time that's going to elapse before your dreams are going to manifest into form. And a lot of people are impatient. They want it and they want it now. And they get frustrated if they don't have what it is that they want right away. But if you're patient, knowing that you're doing the right things to manifest, you're connecting to the outcomes as if they're already here, you're true to your energy, to your vibration, you're staying in alignment, you're going to manifest it. It's absolutely going to happen. It happens every time. Distinction number 8, you don't have to know how you'll get what you want. You just have to decide what you want. That's the truth. That is the most valuable lesson I learned from Bob Proctor. You don't have to know how. You don't have to know how. You don't have to know how. You just have to decide what it is you'd really love. And when you do, you're going to attract it into your life. Distinction number 9, the more value you give unconditionally, the more you'll have. And that's an important part. It's an important word in this. The more value you give unconditionally, the more you'll have. I think this distinction, many entrepreneurs totally miss out. They just sit there with their hand out expecting to receive. They're not willing to give. They're not willing to give free content, free ideas, free messages. They just want everyone to pay for everything, and they're not going to start giving until they receive payment. And it's not the way it works. You must be out there willing to give unconditionally without any expectation of anything in return. And when you do that, you're going to have more come back in your life. Distinction number 10, all of your positive emotions positively increase the flow of abundance to you. You very likely heard me say that before. When you feel good, you attract good. When you feel bad, you attract bad. Simple, but true. Distinction number 11, dwelling in negative emotions slows the flow of abundance. Sometimes it can stop it. Sometimes it can send you in the other direction. Any negative emotion, even if you're mad at the car that's in front of you, or you're mad at the postal worker, I don't know, you're mad at anyone, politics, whatever it is. Anytime you're harboring negative emotions, you're blocking the flow of good. Simple, true. Distinction number 12, your desire to help another become abundant creates more abundance for you. It's like what you give out, you get back. You want to be giving out good in order to get back good. So you create a desire to help another have more abundance. You help people understand how they can be wealthier. You share this podcast as an example with another. That's definitely going to help another become more abundant. And when you do that, good comes back to you. Distinction number 13. Your gratitude and appreciation for your own and others' abundance causes you to become even more abundant. Why does that work? Well, it works basically because when you're in a state of gratitude and or appreciation, you're in a really good state. And so when you appreciate anything, your life will appreciate. It'll get better. Gratitude is a wonderful emotion. It just creates more in your life. So be grateful, be appreciative of others. Distinction number 14, your abundance will show up for you in exact proportion to your belief about it. Many years ago, I heard Bob Proctor ask someone, how much money did you earn last year? And he said, I'm not asking you to be rude or to be nosy. He said, I'm asking you because I want to know what you think you're worth. People will earn money based on what they think they're worth. And so it's reflected. It's reflected in your results, in your income. So that's why your abundance is going to show up for you in exact proportion to your belief about it. Distinction number 15, the language of abundance is powerful. What are you saying as it relates to money? Are you constantly saying things that are non-supportive of you having more? Are you saying you're broke? Are you saying you can't afford it? Are you saying you can't do it because you don't have the money? Are you continuing to give more energy to that? Or are you talking about the abundance in the world? Are you grateful for the abundance that you have? Are you grateful for other people's abundance? Are you expressing that with words? That's really what distinction number 15 is all about. Distinction number 16, ask for what you want. What would you love? Ask and you shall receive. So most people don't even bother investing the time to sit down and think about, what do I really want? But if you do, and you get clear on it, and you write it down, and you write it down in an affirmative as if it's already yours, you're going to find how powerful that will be. Distinction number 17, your unique values regarding wealth are important. Is wealth something that you value? Is it important to you in your life? You see, money gives freedom. That's one of the things that money can do. Money can help you do more for others. It can help you help your family. It can do so much good. It can help you bring more value to the world. So what do you value, or do you value money? That's also going to be reflective in your experience with money as well. Distinction number 18 is there is an abundance of resources available to everyone. And that is so true, even more so today than ever. There's an abundance of knowledge, there's abundance of information, there's abundance of wisdom. You can access it at the touch of your finger. You can access it by having a conversation. There's so much available out there. I'm sharing with you today this podcast, which is totally free online. I also do videos that I send out every week, 3 times a week, called Morning Manifestation. And they're short videos, all giving guidance on how to manifest. That's also free. Another resource that's available. I've got all kinds of ebooks that we give away. We've got all kinds of tools at Manifestation Toolbox that we give away. Or is it Toolkit? I always get those two mixed up. Manifestation Toolbox. I think it's toolbox.com. Or you can find it on PeggyMcColl.com. The next distinction is distinction number 19. Wealth comes in many forms. What do I mean by that? Well, wealth comes in the form of a feeling, of just feeling abundant, of feeling filled up. You could be staring at the sunset and just feel completely fulfilled. You can feel like the richest person in the world. You know, I've often said that I feel like I won the lottery of love. When I met my husband and married my husband, I'm so grateful for my relationship, for my marriage, for my husband, to have him in my life. And I feel wealthy as a result of that. Now, I am wealthy in the monetary sense of the word, but I'm also wealthy in the spiritual sense of the word as well. I'm wealthy in love. And so wealth can come in many different forms. Distinction number 20. Right now, you have the wisdom within you to be rich. So this is really relevant to one of the distinctions that we had talked about earlier, is that everyone has the opportunity to be rich. Everyone. It's not something, wealth is not something that's a few selected people at birth were chosen to be those wealthy ones. It's not the way it is. Anybody can become rich. Anybody in this who has consciousness and awareness has the opportunity to become rich. And then distinction number 21 is wealth consciousness leads to wealth generating actions. And really what that one speaks to is, if you, let's just say you decide that you're going to be rich, you're going to have an abundance of whatever it is that you desire in your life, and you really begin to imagine that you're living your life as a wealthy person. When you're in a state of really emotionally connecting to the outcomes that you desire, then you're going to be getting inspired with ideas on what you can do or what you will do. That's why wealth consciousness and thinking about wealth will lead to wealth generating ideas or actions, because these actions are going to be, you're going to be prompted with things to do. You know, it's interesting as we're doing this today, because I just finished writing my novel yesterday. And this has been an idea that I've been playing with for a number of years, but I never really committed to doing it. I wasn't really thinking, my paradigms were actually in my way. I didn't think that I could do it. But what I did find is that all of a sudden, I just got inspired with doing it, making it happen. And I moved into action. Even though with fingers poised on the keyboard, I wasn't sure I could write. I wasn't sure if I could write a fiction, but I thought, you know what? I've taught how to write fiction because I teach it in my author program, even though I have 18 nonfiction books. I've done interviews with many fiction authors. I've studied and done a lot of research on fiction. I've taken courses on writing fiction. So I just decided to do it, and I moved into action. And as a result, I wrote this book, and I'm in love with this book. It's called Savvy Wisdom. And it was something that previously I didn't think I could do, but something just sort of took over within me. And the idea was there. I was inspired by it. I was encouraged to move into action, and I did. And I'm so glad I did, because it was the most fun I've ever had writing a book, and I'm absolutely in love with the end result. So there's an example. But all of these distinctions, I just went through 21 of them in a relatively short period of time. And as I said, it is a book that you can get, 21 Distinctions of Wealth. You can get it on Amazon.com. But these ideas, when I really assimilated them and become one with these ideas, like really understood them, I printed them out, I kept them in front of me every single day. I would affirm them over and over again. I emotionalized with them. And within a very short period of time, financially, I turned everything around and I put myself right back on track. And I've never been in that position again, thankfully. I never will be in that position again, but it was a very challenging time at that time. But I'm grateful for the experience, and I'm grateful for the experience because of what it's done for me and how it's really created such greater understanding and even greater wisdom. So what I suggest to you is, if you really would love to be experiencing more abundance in your life, if you really would love to have more wealth, study the 21 Distinctions of Wealth. Get a copy of that book. The book is designed in a way that I give you the understanding, and then I give you affirmations to read every day for a period of just over a year. And the reason why you do that is so that you really get it in your consciousness, because when you have it in your consciousness, you're going to find that you're going to be automatically attracting more and more wealth into your life, which is what I've done ever since, which was many, many years ago. So that's my podcast for you today. A wonderful topic. It's a topic I love sharing. I love giving guidance on. If you've enjoyed the Manifestation podcast today, we'd love for you to leave us a 5-star review and share it with your friends. And we'd love for you to tune in again for our next Manifestation podcast. This is Peggy McColl, and it's always a pleasure to serve you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Manifestation Podcast with Peggy McColl. Take your learning deeper by signing up for the free morning manifestation videos at morningmanifestation.com. And follow Peggy on all social media channels for daily updates. See you again.
To get my latest book, The Demand Principle, and to obtain all of the special bonus gifts, you can go right now to thedemandprinciple.com. Again, that URL is thedemandprinciple.com.